Okay, so we are going to continue this coding problem solving where last week we made this job class, and in this job class we had a constructor, we had some regular properties, I'll call them, where we actually flushed out a get block of code and a set block of code. We had some other properties that were auto implemented, right? And so the difference between these regular properties and auto-implemented properties is that these regular properties can work with our instance fields that we created. We also overrid a toString method, an equals method, and a get hash code. Okay, so not to hit on that too much more, but this problem that we're solving, we're going to start by creating a new class, create a Rush job class that derives from job. And so Rush job and inherits from job. And so this kind of demonstrates inheritance, right? This creates a child class and a parent class. We don't have any interfaces like we covered interfaces yesterday. And right away when you get this, you get a red squiggly that says, hey, a job has a constructor and there's no constructor in the child class that corresponds to the parent class constructor. Anytime you create a child class, it first calls the parent class constructor and then runs the child class constructor. So there's kind of an implied rule here. When a child object is created, bless you, a parent constructor will run before the child constructor. And so, what is the parent constructor? Well, the parent constructor takes in these 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters. And it's basically saying, hey, it's going to call this parent constructor automatically when you create a Rush job. And so you need a child constructor that kind of corresponds, as it says, or links to that. And so let's continue on reading the problem. A Rush job has a $150 premium that is added to the price of the job. Right? And it says override any methods in the parent class as necessary. Demonstrate some Rush jobs, an array of Rush jobs, prompt the users for values of each, and do not allow duplicate job numbers. When 5 valid Rush job objects have been entered, display them all plus a total of all the prices. So really a Rush job doesn't have too much unique about it except for the price. There's really not anything too different. So let's kind of focus in on the price of job. Notice that the price of the job was set when you set the hours. And so I might want to override the hours property in Rush job to do this calculation a little bit differently, to calculate price differently. And we are going to notice that hours, when you pass in the hours parameter, it calls the hours property and therefore sets the hours in this property here. And hours, let's see. Now, we do have a price property kind of here, but I'm wondering if, I don't think we wound up using that. In fact, if I comment that out, nope, it did use. No? Okay. I don't think we use that anywhere. I think I could still demonstrate this problem. Let me do this just for now to get that to compile. And if I demonstrate this, say job ID 1, wash car, and then we get job ID already exists. But if I say job ID 2, job 2 added 3. If I go back to 1, job ID already exists. So I didn't, okay, so I just commented that out. So there's really only one way to set the price, and that's in this property of hours. And so I need to basically write a more specific implementation of that in my rush job. So let's go ahead and have rush job inherit from job. Okay, so my first thought is I need to go ahead and write a constructor to get the compiler happy so we can start there. And then I'm probably going to have to do something different with this hours property. Maybe that's overriding it and then just testing that it's all going to work. So let's start with the constructor. We'll say public rush job. And I'm going to take in the same data that a job takes, because really that's all the same. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass that up to base. And so let's go ahead and flush that out. And so rush job is really just the same thing as a, for now, I mean, I can kind of put this down here just to show you that that kind of terminates that. I might come back to this constructor, but for right now, we're just going to start with that, and that makes the compiler happy. And again, I bring in some information and I pass it up to the parent class constructor. So if I step through this code, and I will do that, you'll see how that kind of flows step by step. Now, the next thing I'm kind of thinking that I need to do is override this hours property. And, you know, if I were to just copy and paste this property, we kind of see that there is no instance field that we're working with. And so maybe we'll make that instance field. Now there's also a green squiggly, and it says that basically this property hides the inherited hours, which we kind of discussed. If you're going to have a property that's overridden, it's pretty common to mark it as virtual. And so that this virtual keyword in the parent says, hey, that in the child, we might be overriding it. So that kind of allows us to override the hours in the child. And so that gets that green squiggly happy. And I'm not so sure that I want to completely override all of this. It does seem like a lot of code duplication, right? So I'm going to hold off on this, and because a rush job, we just need to increase the price by 150 bucks. And ultimately, price can be set when we set the hours. But there's no way around that without a set block, you can't really distinguish a rush job because this is private. So if I brought this back, I don't remember whether it said I needed a set block on price or not, but bringing this set block back allows us to do something over here. Allows us to update the price. And so we kind of will set, when we set the hours here, passing it up to the constructor, now we can kind of come in here and say this dot price plus equals 150. And so this is one way that we could update the price. And I just want to create a rush job object with you, and I'll step through this code. And I think you guys will appreciate stepping through this code and seeing how it kind of goes from step to step. So now here's my old code, and let me just have another button to add a rush job. And button rush job. And I'll just go ahead and do rush job called rush job is new rush job, and I'll pass it the hours of 5, the ID of 1, food delivery, and a string of bring pizza to Rankin students. So I'm going to put a breakpoint in right here. Now this is a really good opportunity for you guys to learn for the first time if you haven't seen me using a breakpoint. This is a troubleshooting tool that you will, in every class, use this troubleshooting tool. We did learn about breakpoints last semester in the JavaScript curriculum. You'll revisit them every semester. And so again, this is a troubleshooting tool, and it all starts by clicking, see the number 59, and then you get this sidebar where the little dot kind of follows my mouse. You can put a breakpoint on any executable line of code. So if it ends in a semicolon, you should be able to put a breakpoint there. So I'm going to put a breakpoint on line 59, and then instead of starting without debugging, I'm going to start with debugging. So I'm going to click the play button that's kind of filled in green, and let's see what happens. Now you're going to notice Visual Studio kind of goes into a different view, and so there's some different windows that kind of shift around, and normally students go, oh, that's scary, and they like close it, and they don't like all these new windows going on with diagnostic tools and everything else. There's a lot going on. It's intimidating for the first time. If I go ahead and execute line 59, if I click add rush job, you can see now there's a yellow arrow over the red circle. And what that yellow arrow means is that line has not executed yet, but it's about to execute line 59. And so we're going to step line by line through the code that we've written, and you do that by clicking this button right here, or the hotkey is step into. It's the F11. Now down here, there's some different windows that says autos, locals, and watch. Okay, I'm going to recommend, just for the time being, you click on the locals window. Okay, the locals tells you what's in scope locally in that method. The method is an event handler called the button rush job underscore click. As you can kind of see here right now that rush job is null, right? It has not executed line 59, right? Rush job is null. There is no rush job. There's this variable called E, which is this event args thing. There's this variable called sender. And there is a form with a whole bunch of properties on it. When you see the keyword this, it's referring to the form object that you're working on. My form is called form 1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click the button that's like the first button you need to learn, which is step into. And you can see where it goes. It goes to rush job. Rush job is the constructor that I'm calling. It's on line 13 of my class. And you can see the next thing that's about to execute is about to go up to base, right? So base is the parent of job. So notice how it jumps up to job, right? Then we go into job line by line. It sets the hours. Okay, the hours is set to 5. The job ID, which is 0, is about to be set to 1. Now notice I step into, right? So it executes that line. Now notice my ID is 1. What it's not showing me in the locals window. Let me click the autos. Okay, the autos window actually shows me my properties. Job ID is 1. So you can kind of click on the autos window, and it's basically showing you different variables that Visual Studio is choosing to show you. Like, these are the variables that Visual Studio thinks you want to see. And so we click on that. Now there's a name property set to food delivery. Of course, once we execute line 21, now there's a description that says bring the pizza to Rankin students. Okay, now we see that the price, which is currently $450, right? The price was calculated. Where was the price calculated? Back here, underscore price, 90 times whatever my hours was. My hours were 5, 90 times 5 is 450. That adds up. Okay, so let me go back to my rush job. 450 plus 150. And you can see the price goes up to $600. Adds up in my mind. And so it does look like this is all working. Okay, now we're back in the button click. If I click step into, now you can see that there is a rush job. You can kind of inspect it. You can see that the price is $600. You can see the name property, the job ID property, and the hours property. And so that's all I was doing, was stepping through that little bit of code, just showing you line by line how these things were being called and executed. And I just wanted to check that it was working as I thought it might. Now, a rush job, we didn't need to override hours, so I'll bring this back. I didn't need this instance field called hours, and I didn't really override hours, so I could take the virtual off for now. And really, that's all there is to a rush job. If I flush out the rest of this program, override any methods in the parent class as necessary. I didn't need to. Write a new application named Job Demo that creates an array of 5 rush jobs. Prompt the users for values for each and do not allow duplicates. When 5 valid objects have been entered, display them all plus a total. Okay, so let's kind of go back here and let's flush this out. We can copy these job IDs, job hours, and job name and job description. So this is just reading from the fields. So let's gather input from the user into variables. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4 variables that we're just going to pass to our constructor instead. Job hours, job ID, job name, and job description. Here's our job list. Let's create a list of rush job. Okay, so now we have a rush job object, and let's add it to our list. It says array, but we did list instead. Rush list dot add the rush job. And then let's go ahead and make a variable for the total costs, and assuming decimal total cost is 0. Let's declare this variable at the form level. Decimal total cost is 0. So we start off when the form loads, total cost is 0. Total cost goes up by the rush job dot price. And then we say if rush list dot count is 5, basically said on the 5th job, print out all the data, right? It says when 5 valid rush jobs have been entered, display them all. Okay, now I haven't done the duplicate values, so I gotta account for that. So before we add the rush job, we're gonna have if. We need to loop through for rush job dot count. Oh no, not rush list. So we're going to loop through all of our list, and if rush list sub I dot job ID equals rush job ID, then we basically know do not add the job to the list. But if this loop finishes looping and the job IDs don't match, then we need to add the job to the list. So I like making a Boolean variable. I'll say bool add job is true. And then here I'll set add job equal to false. And you could break out if you so chose. And there is a label on here, label duplicate dot text. Or we'll just say job ID already exists, job not added. Rush job ID already exists, rush job not added. We're not going to add the job. And then here, if add job is still true, then we add it to the list. Now, here's a label here. And I think that label is called my duplicate. Okay, so get the input from the user, loop through your list, see if the job already exists. If it does, give them an error message and don't add it. But if you finish that loop and the IDs don't match, go ahead and add the job to the list, and then you increase the total cost by the price. And then you can have another if statement to print them out. Which I believe I printed them out in label result.text plus equals. Let's just loop through our jobs again. How about we do a shorthand for each? Rush job in job rush list. we got too many things called rush job. Our job. Label result.text plus equals our job.toString. So if the count is 5, loop through all your jobs, print out the toString, which is inherited from here, and it'll say the name has a job ID of that. Now I could override this. It makes sense to override the toString and give it a public override toString and give it a more specific, so it'll say a rush job. This many hours, rush job number ID, wait a minute, job ID. The rush job number 1, comma, name has a description of description, took this many hours, and costs that price. Okay, a lot of code there. There is a newer syntax here. Let's see what it recommends. Isn't that interesting? That's a newer syntax where you can drop off the type on the right hand side. I don't like it. Let's run it and see what breaks. And so again, we can just add rush jobs, job ID of 1. And add a rush job. Now we need some sort of success message, right? So here, label duplicate dot text equals rush job dot ID added. Took 1 hour, add rush job. If I try and add already exists, job 2 added, job 3 added, job 4 added, job ID already exists, job 5 added. Oh, my breakpoints, it's sloppy, but it looks like it's working. We need some line breaks, and we need to double check the math. So let's, in a rush job, put in a line break at the end, and let's get it somewhere on the form that, I don't know, something like right there, and we'll change the auto size. Auto size at the top, alphabetical, there we go. All right. Add a rush job to 2. We already demonstrated the duplicates. 3 added, 4, 4, 5, 5. Okay, rush job 1 took 1 hour and cost $240. Again, it was $90 for the hour plus $150. So 90 plus 150, 240. Math checks out. 2 hours, 90 times 2 is 180 plus 150, 330. Math looks like it's checking out. Rush jobs added. Could clean it up just a little bit more, but that demonstrates that particular portion of that problem. All right, we'll stop that, and you guys can get back to work on your labs. Any questions on the code I covered today? Really wasn't a whole lot.
I got a question on something else.
Any question on the code I covered today? Yes.
Could you show it again?
Sure.
In the form?
What part?
If the list equals 5 for the rush count. Yeah, that.
Yeah, so what we're doing here, we're seeing how many items are in the list, and if there's 5 items in the list, then we loop through each item and print out its information. And again, we're only adding the job if that Boolean variable is true. Like, we're kind of assuming if add job double equals true. That can be assumed here. You can leave that part off, and it's a Boolean variable. It evaluates to true or false. Any other questions? All right, let's get to work.
What's your favorite